Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to IO Radio with your host, Sal Bayat,
Hey, everybody.
and me, Adam Smith. And the today is the Bitcoin 2023 conference that's happening in Miami. And we're going to do a few reaction snippets to some of the talking, the speakers, and the other stuff. And that's it. We're just going to kind of try to add a little bit of logic and reason and qualification to some of the weird stuff they're saying, and hopefully you'll find it entertaining and informative.
I am very much looking forward to this. We watched a bit of the industry day yesterday. I think we both thought there wasn't a lot going on, but today is the GA day, the general admission, and so we're getting some of the good presenters, the quote unquote
Good in a relative sense, good in like cringy funny.
Entertaining. We're gonna have Michael Saylor. They're gonna have Mr. Kennedy. They're gonna have Tulsi Gabbard and some other people. But I think we're gonna take a look at a few of the streams.
Yeah, the people that happened before. I want to say, I also want to point out that I got online yesterday and started making some comments, calling attention to some of the lies they were saying about Lightning Network and some other stuff. And of course, they immediately shadow banned me. So now.
That was on the YouTube
chat, the live stream chat, which is a bummer because, and if you go to the day one, you'll see I was in from the very beginning, and a few of my comments still show up in the replay until they whacked me like a whack-a-mole. And if you look at the chats of the live thing, there's very little actual critical commentary because they just shadow ban these people, and then they think they're still commenting, but it just doesn't appear. And of course, I've discovered I got shadow banned yesterday, so I'm shadow banned today. So I can't type anything that anybody else will see. This is the censorship resistant tech of the future. Remember, that cannot deal with any kind of critical commentary. All right, so let's move on. Let's see what we got.
I forgot the clicker, so I hope somebody can click through the slides while I am here. I'm sorry about that. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Crypto people so prepared.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for everybody who's read my books. It is your support of my work that has made this new book possible. My new book is Principles of Economics. It's a textbook in economics. I hope the people in backstage can
close the chat.
Scroll through the slides. Yes.
You want to close the chat?
Bitcoin
is
more than just a
that you don't need.
I think it's fun to watch all the crazy, stupid shit that they say.
Okay.
Because I think that if there's going to be a theme of what we're going to be doing, it's probably going to be look at this cult just bouncing affirmations back and forth with each other without making any specific claims. This is the thing that bothers me. Now, there's one guy that hasn't been banned, this FJB.
He's a pro crypto guy.
Bitcoin will be controlled for our safety. He's a troll. See?
No, he's a pro crypto guy.
Right, but he's a troll. See, he's got everybody in the chat room telling him he needs to be banned.
Oh.
So here's a go. Few understand, guy doesn't I think this FJB guy is like a gold person. He was posting something in the chat room earlier about how we need to buy gold. All of these speculators are just fighting with each other.
Bitcoin overturns the current order of society based on central banks' unlimited power. I think this is something that people in this conference should probably be familiar with. A lot of our life, a lot of our world depends on the fact that there's a small group of people, mainly governments and banks, that can print money out of nothing, out of thin air, while the rest of us have to work
there's a lie
like
right there.
Slaves.
This is one of the reasons why I'm so motivated to fight against this stuff, is that these people are just telling lies. Lie after lie. Look, if your digital system is so awesome, that's fine. But don't say the government is just printing money out of thin air. It's a complete lie. We have all of the money that's in circulation is very well audited and accounted for. And in order to be able to have more money in circulation, that means increasing our debt, which means we have it, but mandated by law, there's a maximum amount of debt we can handle. That's why whenever we need to, quote, increase the monetary supply, we have to have an act of Congress. Congress has to approve it. This is just something that I'm just so frustrated that they keep saying it's a lie. It's not like
It doesn't matter though. The truth doesn't matter. What matters is increasing the price of that token, which means they need more participants. They need more people to buy. They need more people to invest their money. And so you will say anything, you will do anything to make that happen. That, as long as that happens.
yeah. I mean,
fine.
I understand why they're lying. I just feel like we just have to continually, fight and call attention to the fact that it is a lie, really.
Well, we also need to call out this language that they use. So, for example, the fiat cartel is democratic governance. So that's what they're really opposing. They don't want the money supply to have any type of democratic controls. And I don't think you or I are arguing that our financial system is perfect or there aren't problems in the economy, that there isn't inequality. All of these things exist. But to put the money supply in private hands where there's no possibility for it to ever be redistributed in any way, shape, or form is insanity. To let go of the control over the money supply, to not allow democratic governance of the money supply is a bad idea. And no matter what these people say, whether they're saying, oh, we have a DAO and we govern it like that, look at who owns the tokens. Look at the pre-mines. Look at who controls the source code.
Agree with you. I also want to point out that government is not the enemy here. Government is just a structure. It's a concept of how people can have control and influence over their society. Corporations are a similar construct. It's a construct how people can create an entity that can work collectively to create value. The difference between private and public is that public has no profit motive. The main profit motive of government is to take care of the people, not to make as much money as possible. Corporations can achieve the similar kind of objective, but they also have an additional objective of creating profit for a small number of shareholders. So when you privatize, which is basically what they're talking about when they say decentralized stuff, they're privatizing the operation of all of this stuff and giving it to lots of little entities that have their own personal interests above the interests of the community. And I don't understand how that is supposed to result in anything better. At the end of the day, sure, a nonprofit organization can be corrupt and can be inefficient, but that's not a function of a nonprofit. It's a function of bad people in a nonprofit. Same thing with government. If government is mishandling and mismanaging money, that's not the problem of government. It's the problem of people in government that are irresponsible.
It's also an example of all of these issues with monetary supply, with hyperinflation. A political crisis always precedes them. So it's not the issue. Like, the issue isn't the fact that you can print money or you can expand the money supply. It's how that's governed. It's how that's controlled. What are the constraints? What are the checks and balances?
Right, but
That's
the elephant in the
important thing to
room
focus
that
on.
they're ignoring is the fact that if you have bad people in either of these entities, you're going to have bad policy, right? You can have corrupt, selfish, horrible, incompetent people running a decentralized system just as well as you can in a government system. The difference is, in a government system, there's a very clear path to how to remove these people and replace them. In a private, decentralized system, there is no clear path. There may not even be a way. When it comes to like Bitcoin, we don't even know who the principal architects are that control the source code. And there is no method by which we could replace any of these developers. You know, they say consensus can do it.
Hold on. They do publish. There is a self-published list.
A self-published list. It doesn't say how
Yes.
many people have commit access to the repo and who they are.
It says, I'm pretty sure. No, it does. There is
I've-
a forum
well,
post that is
I've seen the
updated.
forum post and I've seen it updated.
Now-
I have, but I don't think it's complete and I don't think it's up to date.
Now, yes, whether it's complete or up to date, we have
But the
no
point
way of
is that
confirming.
there's no code is law that requires those people to be public about who pulls the strings in the code. So it's all, as you said, self-published, voluntary. We're just supposed to assume out of the goodness of these people's hearts that they're going to be honest with us. But as you see, every time they open their mouth, it's a bunch of lies. But we're supposed to trust them because random anonymous people are more trustworthy than public, transparent people in government. See, that doesn't make sense to me.
Discuss those impacts a lot in my books, but I think one thing that is underrated perhaps is the impact that it would have on education, and in particular economics education. So because of Bitcoin, we no longer need the fiat, thank you so much. Because of Bitcoin, we no longer need the fiat cartel.
And so we no longer need the fiat cartel. So first off, that's begging the question, a statement that's unproven in the process of making another statement. And what's this fiat cartel? You need fiat because Bitcoin is so unstable and it's so rare, supposedly, that you can't really use it for currency. So you're still going to need a currency. None of this makes sense, really.
Well, it's major projection. It's the crypto cartel, not the fiat cartel. The fiat cartel is what? Democratic governance of our money. But the crypto cartel, a private special interest, that's totally legitimate.
Yeah, okay.
In order to have money, we also no longer need the fiat cartel to sponsor economists in order to teach us economics. If you look at the current world of academic economics, this is a scientific chart illustrating the relationship between modern economists and the central bank. You see around 90% of papers in monetary economics are sponsored by the Federal Reserve. Around 99%, by my estimation.
Yeah, I don't believe that. 90% of papers in monetary economics are sponsored by the Federal Reserve. I don't know where he would get that figure. But you could, by my estimation, where's the evidence of that?
All this seems to be is an ad hominem attack on economists.
Or guilt by association, actually. See, Federal Reserve is bad, government is bad. So here's papers that the Federal Reserve is sponsoring, so therefore those papers are bad too. What we need is people that are paid by private interests pumping up their own shitcoin to write papers on economics. That's what everybody needs.
We'll have a far better result if we do that.
Of academic economists believe that you need a cartel in charge of money in order for money to work. I think this is going to go down in history as one of the dumbest things people in the 20th and 21st century believed. Is this idea that money is a technology that can only work if some group of people can make it out of thin air and get to decide the supply and get to decide who gets to use it, while everybody else has to work for it.
Begging the question.
Well,
the dumbest thing
these people
is
get to
Bitcoin
decide what gets taught as economics at university.
Apparently that's the new buzzword. We'll just call everything a cartel, because that's got the evil connotations.
If you had the misfortune of learning economics at a university, you learned it from people who think we need a monopoly cartel. In the same book in which they taught you that a cartel for oil is bad, a cartel for food is bad, a monopoly on housing or any other.
How about a cartel like a DAO?
Bad.
That's a cartel.
They told you that the only way that money can work
Yep.
is by having a monopoly.
Pre-mine.
And why is that the
cartel.
case? Well, simply because if you don't agree, you don't get to call yourself an economist. You don't get to get a job as an economist.
This is a
You don't
no
get
true
hired at a
Scotsman fallacy
university
here.
If you tell them, I think we should just get rid
just
of the Federal
pause
Reserve.
for a second. A lot of economists have serious problem with neoclassical economics that are taught at universities like University of Chicago and MIT. There are many different strands of economics, and to say that some of them may be wrong or some of their, whether it's philosophy or theories, may be incorrect is fine. But to say that Bitcoin should replace that, you need to provide some evidence that what you're espousing, which to be fair, we haven't even heard. This guy is saying the entire field of economics is bullshit.
Right, economics taught in universities too. So every economics course in every university is wrong.
But I'm not going to tell you why, and I'm not going to give you my counter to those prevailing theories.
Yeah.
Well, that seems extremely unscientific.
Yeah, obviously.
And replace it with nothing. It doesn't work that way. Yes, nothing. Nothing is the best replacement. So, writing the Bitcoin standard, thankfully, finally allowed me independence from academic economics, and I was able to build my own read.
This independence was basically none of his peers respecting his work, so he calls himself independent.
Well, you would be surprised, as somebody who's read a bunch of papers, a lot of the papers on Bitcoin economics. A lot of them are really bad.
Oh no, I'm not surprised.
A lot of them are pro, like very pro Bitcoin. Even ones that, if you listen, if anyone I would recommend, go to YouTube and watch Gary Gensler's series where he teaches about crypto and
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
and I have seen
he
that.
has a section on Bitcoin economics, and the papers he points to, you go and read those papers, and you're just scratching your head. But sure.
Thanks to people who buy my books, I'm able to write what was for a lot of the last 5 years. If you looked at the Amazon bestseller section, in the money and monetary economics section, the Bitcoin Standard was always close to the top throughout the last 5 years since it came out. And that happened independently of academic.
I mean, that's basically what we're going to be seeing. A bunch of car salesmen
unique, and it's something that's very important. And it's not something that would have been possible without Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. Because Bitcoin opens your eyes up to the fact that we don't need government to run money, you become open to the idea that maybe we can also read perspectives.
Yeah, you
on
do
money.
need government to run money.
Come from government.
A currency that inflates in value
for my voice.
perpetually with participation is so great.
Because
and
inflationary currency.
And government runs the fucking internet that Bitcoin depends on, so you still need government.
So I'm able to write a book that can sell very well, and it can outsell
my book.
most of the fiat cartel.
Did I tell you I wrote the book?
Books on monetary economics. And because of that, I thought this would be a great opportunity to write an economic textbook that is independent.
I got another book
of the
coming
influence
up.
Of academia.
Please buy it.
So I left my job at the university, and I've spent the last 4 years working hard on trying to make this.
So he was at a university, which you just told everybody, if you learn economics in university,
but I could not do while I was in academia,
stupid.
because in academia I would have spent 4 years writing this book, and without Bitcoin, without Bitcoiners, it would not have
saying he has a
gotten
heterodox
assigned
opinion.
into
I
any
wonder if
university,
he really
not
did
have gotten
quit,
any
or
kind
he
of
was
readership.
kind of asked to quit.
But now, thanks to you guys, I'm able to do this. So, thank you.
Have I told you about my book yet?
So what would a proper non-fiat textbook for economics look like? What would an economics textbook look like if it wasn't financed by the fiat cartel to justify their use of central banking to rob the planet? And I mean, that's basically, you know, if you haven't read your university textbook yet, that's, sorry for spoiling it for you, but that's the conclusion of the book. There's a whole bunch of math and a whole bunch of equations and a whole bunch of noises, but then you come up with the conclusion that, oh yeah, we need the cartel, we need a small group of people in charge of money, we need them to print money, and we need to stop anybody else from having a free market in money and banking, because otherwise, how will they
free
get
market,
to
pause.
rob the
So guys, the free market doesn't exist as it's conceived and propagandized by these Bitcoin people. When they say the free market, what they actually mean, they mean the law of the jungle. They mean a market with no rules, where you can do anything, where there are no laws, there's no rule of law.
Well, hold up. They do want all the
and
infrastructure that government provides. They want all that. They want all of the
but that
roads
could
and the
be privatized
highways
as well. No, but that would all be privatized as well. Like in their wet dream, that all becomes private also.
This libertarian utopia that requires a central authority to put everything in place first and then hand it over to a small number of libertarians who will run it as a free market. Yeah, which has never, ever actually happened in the history of human civilization.
So the free market doesn't exist. If you want to have a fair, competitive market, which is what I think most people envision, what they're actually thinking about when someone says free market, that requires regulation. That requires someone thinking about the common good. That requires a referee.
Right.
And this person is there saying free market as though you can have that without a referee, and it's not true.
It's just like civil rights. There is no such thing as civil rights in a completely anarchistic society. There has to be some powerful central entity that polices our civil rights and protects them. You know, that's not something that we can expect everybody else around us to respect automatically without some kind of authority saying, yes, you can't do this to that person.
Well, I would just say that, you know, on that, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but if you have coercion, then that requires some type of legitimate authority. There has to be a legitimate reason for that coercion. Right. So, you know, my son steps into the road. He's, you know, let's say he's 4 years old. He's going to run in front of a car. I grab him and I pull him out of the way. Well, I've coerced him. I've used physical force, but there's a good reason for that. And the same is true. So if we have a set of laws that governs everyone, that everyone agrees to, about the rules that will follow, that provides legitimacy for.
Except according to these guys' definition, if 97 people agree, but 3 don't, those 3 are the real freedom fighters that have got everything figured out, and they're the ones being put down by the 97%. And they think the 97% are just brainwashed because they like their stuff like running water and civil rights and stuff like that, and they just not on board. None of it makes any sense.
Planet.
Yeah.
So, what would a textbook look like if it didn't have those things? Wouldn't it be nice if economics was taught as a field of knowledge and not just marketing for the fiat cartel? That was the goal from writing this textbook. Obviously, it was
God, there's so
influenced a
much
lot
projection
by
going on in
Austrian
this.
economics. And so
That's amazing.
this is what you can expect in the book. It begins by discussing the fundamentals of
So
the
basically, he's
methodology
just
of
pitching
approaching
his
economics
book.
and thinking about economics questions. It looks at the acts that people do to economize, tries to explain the market order, explains monetary economics, and then explains the importance of economics and capital accumulation and economic freedom for civilization. And so I'm going to just give you a brief overview of the material for the book. In the first section of the book, in fundamentals, as I said, we begin with an Austrian perspective, and so this is grounded in human
Austrian.
action.
Yeah, so he's a moron. He's an Austrian economist, so we can ignore him. He's an
Well,
idiot.
it's not fair for us to just dismiss him in the way he's dismissing government as being a cartel. See, we don't want to necessarily stoop to that level. But the idea behind Austrian, and again, I said I'm not an expert in this, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Austrian economics is that kind of libertarian, super free market model where everybody should be able to do whatever they want, and the market will just correct itself, right?
Okay, so like if I had to boil it down to just about Austrian economics, I would say that these are guys that believe in the power of the free market. So these are, I mean, they have a religious belief in quote unquote free markets, and the less government intervention you have, the better, because that makes the market
Which is
more
also
free,
a fundamental
be more
principle
efficient.
of libertarianism, the minarchist, anarcho-capitalist libertarianism. They're all kind of aligned with each other. And basically, it's like, I'm a private interest, leave me alone, let me do whatever I want. Trust me, if I do something really bad, the market will let me know. We don't need government to get involved. That is the concept that I think these philosophies espouse. The problem with that is there is not a single example in all of human history where any society that's been modeled around that type of system has functioned healthy. There is nothing. This is a question I continually pose.
Well, but hold on. Just look at when, more Austrian type ideas were popular. We had crisis after crisis in the economy. So these are also the people that don't believe, and they believe that any additional money in the money supply will yield increases in prices that always leads to inflation, as opposed to smart investment and the correct usage of the expansion of the money supply, growing demand and growing supply.
We know that a fluid monetary system works a lot better. The history has shown that. These people have created a static monetary system that the only way they can demonstrate that it's an improvement is to tell lies about the existing system, saying that it's broken. When our money still works. I got my first house, piece of property, when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I took out a loan for it, and I probably would not be a property owner if I didn't have the ability to do that. And that to me is part of the whole economy of creating a kind of a quantitative easing system where you can give somebody a little bit more money than they have to help them move up the ladder, get some equity. In a world where Bitcoin is the main monetary system and it's deflationary, loans are just going to progressively become more and more expensive, and you're going to end up with the situation where only the rich can afford to have money. Their whole system completely falls apart when you put it in a particular specific scenario. That's why they all talk generally about Bitcoin is freedom and government is a cartel, because if they talk about anything specific that you could check, you find out their theories fall apart.
Yeah, well, a lot of this Austrian economic stuff isn't really based on math or the study of human behavior
or economics.
It's just
thinking.
It's based on like a priori thinking. It's based on thought experiments, and they believe like, hey, we can figure this stuff out. We just think about it hard enough. We don't actually have to, have an experiment or have data or have any kind of predictive capacity. This is just how we think it works.
And this guy's book, basically, he's already come up with the conclusion before he even started the book, which the conclusion is Bitcoin is the money of the future. So now he backtracks and tries to fill in all these blanks to pave a nice little path from the history of how economics works to you want Bitcoin.
Of aggregates, we don't look at scientific sounding relationships between economic aggregates that are made up by economic statisticians. We actually look at how human beings act, and we try and understand the implications of humans' actions and the economic underpinnings of these economic actions. We explain the concept of value, and the fundamental difference between Austrian economics and mainstream fiat economics is the concept of value. For Austrian economists, value is subjective. It's not something that can be decreed. It's not something that can be measured with scientific precision. It's not something that's objective. There are no goods that have objective value.
Okay, this is false here, because I did an entire section on this where I talk about the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic value. There is subjective value and there is objective value. Water is objectively valuable, Gold is objectively valuable as a material element with certain properties. Subjectivity is what Bitcoin is. So, of course, they're molding this whole thing to fit their little...
The concept of objective value is invalid in Austrian economics. Value is always subjective. It is in the mind of the person who makes that valuation. And this is an enormously important concept which changes the entire way in which you approach economics.
Yeah. Again, I want to clarify very concisely. There are some things that have objective value that you absolutely need. Air, water, food, and a lot of those things in our society we clearly value because we need them. So to suggest there isn't anything that has objective value is bullshit.
Anything where there's inelastic demand will be valued. So all the things you listed, food, water, energy, they all have inelastic demand.
Okay.
And it is the reason why most of the economics you learned at university practically serves no useful purpose other than to get you to believe in central banking and the fiat cartel.
Oh yeah, it's all conspiracy.
And then the third chapter discusses the concept of time.
Bitcoin advocates always
and the
do
importance
this.
of
They have
time
potentially a legitimate criticism, and then they jump to something that's just insane.
I mean, that's it. If this guy has a good idea, just tell us what the good idea is. Stop revisiting the fact that the system that we've been using for our whole lives is completely broken and corrupt. Well, it's still working for me.
It's just bait and switch.
With that fundamental analysis, we move on to the concept of economizing. What does it mean to economize? And since time is scarce, all of our actions are about economizing our time. And so the actions that people carry out to economize, these are concepts in economics that you've heard over and over again, but they don't get explained very well, I would say, in your university textbook. So I go through the concept of labor, what does it mean, the concept of property and the importance of property. And that is, of course, something that your textbook does not emphasize. And of course, your textbook has very little to discuss about the concept of capital,
there's one textbook
and the importance of
that everybody has.
And
he knows
reason, because they don't want you to have capital, they want to keep all the capital for themselves.
More that us versus them
kind
of thing.
In this book, we go through the concept of capital and why it is such a pivotal concept.
They want to keep all the capital for themselves. And how is that different from all these Bitcoin maxis and other crypto enthusiasts?
Important to understand it in modern economics. And then we discuss the economics of technology and the economics of energy and power, and why all of these concepts are the way in which we economize to try and make our time better on this earth, to increase the quality and the quantity of time on this earth, which is how I can like to think of the concept of economizing. Then moving on from these individual acts that people carry out to economize, we have the market order, which corresponds to the things that people do in a social setting to economize and to trade with one another. And that
we should just move
on. The most obvious
this guy
one
is
just trade, where people trade with one another.
Fair enough.
The reason
he's just literally going
governments
through
have
all
so much
this.
This is
power,
the outline of
the
his
reason why
book.
People cannot save.
Like, if I had a devastating critique of economics, then what I would do is say, here are the three things that are fundamentally flawed with mainstream economics. And here's why, and here's the evidence. And that's what you do. And then people would go, oh, maybe they start using your work, and maybe eventually you'd win a Nobel Prize. But this guy's just telling us what's in each chapter.
Yeah, capitalism and human freedom. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Cheers.
Human freedom, freedom, freedom.
And capitalism, human capitalism and freedom.
Welcome back. I'm Pete Rizzo, editor at Bitcoin Magazine. We're here at the Bitcoin Magazine Live Desk presented by Marathon, joined again by special guests Amanda Cavalieri.
Can I just say something? Is that guy like fulfilling people's prescriptions in between the segments? Why is he wearing that jacket? Really? He's like a pharmacist.
Chair of the Bitcoin Today Coalition, Marty Bent, host of the Truth for the Commoner podcast, and Jordan Schachtel, independent investigative journalist. We just heard from Saifuddin Ammous, giving a rousing speech on how government money corrupts.
Rousing.
So I want to send it to the panel. We're going to hear from presidential candidates later. Can they fix the money printer? Marty.
No, they cannot.
Money printer.
The inertia of the centralized system is too strong. The momentum is too strong. As Friedrich Hayek said, the only way we can take back control of the money is to find a sly roundabout way to take it out of the hands of the government. And that is Bitcoin.
It sounds like you're going to be skeptical of these candidates later.
I mean, I think some of them are very nice people. They're very nice people.
Bitcoin isn't
don't
money.
think there's anything they can do
It's not
to change
used
the
as money.
system. Jordan and I were talking. They will not be let in if they can. And even if they do get in, it'll be made impossible for them to do anything.
Government money printer ruining academia, ruining science. Jordan, your take, can we fix this?
Academia ruining science.
The solutions will not be found in Washington, D.C. I agree with Marty. The solutions will be found in places like this, where you have brilliant engineers, coders, developers, entrepreneurs.
Yeah, really. Name me one goddamn solution you guys have done. This is
15 years. Well, to be fair, they've solved poverty, war, and disease in 15 years. So,
but don't ask them to demonstrate where that solution is, and they'll just say, "Oh, it's early."
Who are developing solutions to make it easier for people to adopt Bitcoin, to buy Bitcoin, to use Bitcoin. And as much as I appreciate that some of these presidential candidates, Congress members, that they are starting to discuss Bitcoin a little more, I think that certainly DC is not the answer. DC is always where the problem lies.
Always where the
DC
problem,
is
right?
where they can
Except
print
that DC gives you civil rights, private property rights to set up the internet, GPS, Wi-Fi, and wireless communications. Yeah, DC is the problem.
Yeah, these are the people that want to dismantle the government. They want to go back to feudalism. They want there to be kings. They want you to be someone's subject, someone's property. That's ultimately what they want when they say all this.
Here's how it
bullshit.
works. You live in mom's basement, and mom is the evil government, and you want to be free. You want freedom. So what you want is mom to give you her car and continue to pay the rent and have food on the table, but otherwise don't tell you what you can do. That's their utopia.
Yep.
the money and
right.
debase your wealth and make you poor and have fun staying poor forever through their fiat system. So I think that I'm very encouraged by the solutions that we find outside of DC. I mean, right behind us we have the great Mises Institute booth, and they're based in Alabama. So any institution that's basically connected to that uniparty beltway blob situation is not good for me.
All right, well, unfortunately, we have to send it back to the main stage. Flow States and Free Markets. Next up, a keynote with Mr. Robert Breedlove. Stay tuned.
I'm just glad we have such a diverse panel of people.
Yeah, and there's a pharmacist there, obviously, in case anybody needs some prescriptions.
Yeah. Some Adderall. Oh, who's this guy? Let's check the schedule. What do we see? Bitcoin agenda.
Let's go back to
Mining stage, enterprise, Nakamoto stage, flow states and free markets with Robert Breedlove. He breeds love, host of What is Money and a keynote speaker on the Nakamoto stage.
He looks like he should be teaching yoga
to
classes.
Warm you up for this next one, we're going to do a little activity. So raise your hand if Bitcoin is your preferred way of saving money.
This guy's like
All right,
Elizabeth
all right.
Holmes.
Do you
but
think
male.
that's his real voice?
I don't know.
Raise your hand.
Maybe.
He should be doing movie trailers.
Raise your hand if you denominate your wealth in Bitcoin.
Raise your
Okay,
hand if
in-group.
you've ever spent
Raise your hand if you're
Bitcoin
part of the
on
in-group.
goods or services, or zapped Bitcoin on Nostr to give value for value.
Raise your hand if you've ordered ecstasy online and ended up with Tide powder.
These remind me of religious affirmations in a cult.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you've accidentally sent crypto to the wrong address and lost it.
All right, that's a lot of hands. So I guess when someone asks the question, what is money? It's safe to say Bitcoin is money.
Of course.
I'm sorry, Robert Breedlove. You might
yeah,
need a
because
new
we
title
say
for your
so.
podcast now.
Bitcoin is
No, I'm just
money.
kidding.
Bitcoin
Up
is
next,
money.
we have Robert Breedlove, host of the What is Money show with flow states and free markets.
Let's give him a warm welcome.
Yeah. Let me go readjust my man bun.
Seriously, every guest here looks like
Good morning.
they're like the tennis pro at the local country club.
So, in preparing
Like a
for this
shirt.
keynote, we
He
went
did
through
a lot of bench
heady
presses. Is
topics.
what he did in preparing for it.
We talked about the
good.
meaning of meaning.
That's the
we
most
talked about
important
fractal
thing.
reflections of ego. We talked about the
Hard
nature of
money.
human
Ugh,
virtue.
Bitcoin is freedom.
But it soon became apparent to us in preparing for this keynote that a lot of this was more suitable for an essay than a 15-minute talk. So I'm going to focus my talk today on relatively lightweight questions, attempting to answer things such as, what is the meaning of life?
Ha ha ha.
And as it turns out, meaning has a lot to do
His
with
timing
the stories
is pretty
we tell
bad.
ourselves about ourselves and the pursuit of virtue in general. As Plato said, those who tell the stories rule society. If society is a story, then with the power of
Plato
the
also
money
said, "What the
printer,
fuck is this
that
crypto
story
shit?"
is largely authored by a powerful minority of central planners. Many of us here are here because we dream of a new and better story, one authored by sovereign
ourselves.
individuals
Sovereign. Oh.
and for the benefit of humanity, where individuals author their own destiny instead of having their roles written by central planners and a state that is antagonistic to their wants, desires, and dreams. There are two major experiences in my life that have been very transformative. One was my discovery of Bitcoin. The other was becoming a father to my beautiful daughter, Penny. And if society is a story, through Bitcoin, I discovered how ugly the current storyline is. And by being a father to my beautiful daughter, I discovered how excellent it could and should be. As individuals, Bitcoin showed me that we're each a node on the network with a unique yet equal responsibility to be the change we wish to see in the world. My daughter taught me that responsibility is not an intellectual abstraction, but a set of specific actions that must be fulfilled each and every day.
So
I didn't know
mean,
responsibility
Jesus
was a
Christ.
philosophical abstraction.
Like I never thought in my life that something would blend technology and religion so seamlessly. It's unbelievable. And all of these affirmations, I don't know what to say.
It's gratuitously gratuitous.
These thoughts are a powerful reminder that I'm shaping a story that my daughter Penny will one day inherit, and that I have a responsibility, even if just a small
Just
part.
Pause for 1
to make a
second. But framing all of this stuff as for the common good is just so gross.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's about wealth for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Positive difference in this world. And when I look on the world today, I see a fiat fairy tale that's quickly devolving into a nightmare.
Yeah, a fiat fairy tale that is quickly devolving into a nightmare. Meanwhile, I just paid my mortgage with that nightmare. I got a bunch of groceries. I'm going to go out later on and get some stuff with that nightmare, and it's going to work really, really well. And you know what? Maybe that nightmare cost 11 cents more today than it did 4 years ago, but that's not necessarily because it's inflationary. There's so many other factors.
Instead of kids living this, they get this.
Bitcoin solves this.
So Notice the masks too. So like,
yeah, appeal to the anti-maskers. I mean, listen, I don't think as a parent who had children that were attending school during COVID, I don't think anyone was happy with some of the restrictions that had to be put in place. But why were we doing this?
Yeah, to reduce
people weren't doing this
unnecessary
to torture
suffering,
children.
to reduce unnecessary suffering.
Yeah. So and maybe things could have been better. Maybe this wasn't necessary, but ultimately,
no, it was necessary, and we
to-
got through it, and we did relatively well. But here's what bugs me about this, right? This is a great example of a false dichotomy, right? He's implying that you can either have your kids kind of confined or free. Why not when they're at school during a pandemic? There's rules they have to follow to protect each other, and then after school they get on their little things and they ride. He's suggesting that you can only do one or the other.
Well, I think also the suggestion is that somehow Bitcoin has anything to do with this.
Yeah.
Whereas we're talking about
Bitcoin is
a pandemic.
freedom. Remember that.
Yeah, I guess that's what they're trying to tie it into. You won't have to, in a pandemic, you can just do whatever you want because of Bitcoin.
Yeah, remember how they made you wear a mask during the pandemic? Wasn't that horrible?
I didn't have
Instead
much
of this, they get this.
Wait! Isn't the metaverse and stuff all what the crypto shills are pushing, anyways?
What is that? What is going on in that picture?
Oh,
anyway?
sorry, it's a vaccine. I guess they're trying to distract the kid. I just thought it was a VR headset at first. So this is all tying into anti-vaxxer stuff.
These people are fucking nuts. So instead of being out there exploring the world, you're being held down by people with some kind of VR device strapped to your head while somebody sticks a needle in your arm.
Shot up with chemicals.
Holy
tracking
shit.
device.
That is so hyperbolic and dramatic. And that's just, see, this is the kind of shit that really bugs me.
And instead of this, they get this.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, no. God forbid we're inclusive.
Holy shit. So there you have it, folks. This is what Bitcoin is all about. This whole respecting the civil rights of other people when you should be, I guess, maybe preaching a sermon to somebody. I don't know what this kid's doing.
Looks like he's holding a Bible. He's laughing at it.
Ugh.
Makes you wonder why.
I feel sorry for this dude's daughter.
He's reading Genesis and he thinks it's hilarious.
Oh man, he's reading the part where God just commits mass genocide on the planet because he got his feelings hurt. That's what it is.
Or when he tries to have somebody kill their son.
Yeah,
you know, it's a really humorous part.
That fun Abraham story was always really cool.
Oh my God! So we've anti-public health, anti-vax, anti-trans, and I'm assuming gay as well. I'm assuming also homophobic. So phenomenal.
Yeah. There you go,
But like
folks.
the subtle dog whistles, right? The little dog whistles. Doesn't come out and say it. It isn't enough of can't actually state their opinion, is a coward and has to just sort of dog whistle it and imply it to the audience.
This is what we're up against, people. You see, there's a lot more at stake here than just this stupid digital token system. These people are crazy. They're sociopaths. They're malignant narcissists. They're psychopaths. They think that tolerance for civil rights for all is some kind of horrible attack against their freedom.
It's a story of division and fragmentation, not just between people, but within people. And as an aspiring sovereign individual, I'm not here to play any blame games.
Yeah, you are playing.
But I think we can all identify the source of this cultural fragmentation.
Oh, really? What's the blame?
Fractured money.
So I'm not going to play the blame game, but we can all identify the source.
What's this fractured money?
Hearts,
Isn't crypto fractured money?
Minds,
1,000 different tokens?
Societies. The new story we write under a Bitcoin standard should be where kids feel valuable and valued, instead of lost, broken, and isolated.
So kids are lost, broken, and isolated, and Bitcoin fixes that?
Yep, Bitcoin fixes I guess, childhood depression and obesity.
I'm sure it makes all your deadbeat
all
parents suddenly love you more, and put you in good schools.
We wouldn't have deadbeat parents.
You know what? If you had had Bitcoin, Daddy wouldn't have left.
But where can we start? One important place to look is the condition that describes the optimal human experience, known as the flow state. Flow was popularized by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, but it's a phenomenon that has been studied by great philosophers like William James and Nietzsche. Flow is what makes life worth living.
Some real woo-woo shit right here.
Cutler outlines the key properties of flow experience. And as a sovereign individual, as a father, and as a freedom maximalist, these properties...
Sovereign individual, freedom maximalist. I think, in other words, as a selfish prick who puts his own priorities above the priorities of anybody around his community, regardless of whether or not wearing a mask or respecting other people's civil rights infringes on his fucking freedom. You're right. This is full of dog whistles, man.
These are the 5 progressive properties of flow. First is curiosity. A curious mind desires to learn more, and this can lead to the discovery of passion, a powerful emotional drive that transforms curiosity into a purpose. Purpose is an intentional aim or calling which encourages an individual to pursue autonomy. Autonomy is a state of self-determination. And
autonomy was shoehorned in there.
Forges self-mastery. Which is
I don't think you need autonomy.
Valuable skills, virtue.
You know, here's what's funny, right? He's talking about autonomy, and there's a picture of a basketball guy there, right? That dude is part of a fucking team. You know what I mean? There's no autonomy there. The only reason why that shit works is because your teammates are there. Y'all are working collectively.
I just don't see how any of this, I just want to see the tie into Bitcoin, because I'm just like, okay, yeah, great. Be curious, have passion. Awesome. Be autonomous, master something. Great. Right. And then this is the bait. Now we're going to see the switch.
Well, autonomy doesn't belong in this little bulleted point list, but that's where the Bitcoin ties in, because Bitcoin is autonomy. Watch. That's where he's going to, because it's like, what, it's like an IQ test. Which doesn't belong here,
And the status of self-authorship. Looking at this list, 3 things jump out to me. First is that all these properties practically define what it means to be a sovereign individual. Self-mastery is a synonym for self-sovereignty.
No.
To be the master of one's own body, one's own mind, one's own emotions, one's own actions, one's own property. Secondly, each of these properties are characteristics that any loving parent would want their child to experience and possess, from natural curiosity to hard-earned self-mastery.
Bait.
Yeah, this is just
a
hodgepodge of weird things stuck together.
The exact qualities that central planners do not want in their populations.
Of course, big evil government.
Curious people don't trust the experts, and
curious people don't trust the experts. Right. So part of autonomy is recognizing your personal opinion has as much gravitas as somebody who's spent their entire life mastering something. So don't you see how the self-mastery and the autonomy kind of conflict with each other?
Well, it's just like the Dunning-Kruger is amazing. Mm-hmm. It's just, well, okay, I'm a self-sovereign individual, so I can understand anything. I know all about.
We don't need to listen to the experts. Well, you know what? What I would say the biggest function of curiosity is open-mindedness, being willing to entertain all the different viewpoints and being able to test and determine which ones are most valid. This guy seems to think that if he disagrees with an expert, that he's the one that is on the right path.
Well, where's education also? Because I'm assuming that's bad, right? I'm assuming education is bad because that's, from the state potentially. And that's what gives you the ability to trust the experts. That's what allows you, if you educate yourself about history, if you educate yourself about different subjects, if you know how to read through a paper and check, citations and sources, and look at a study and say, well, that methodology is flawed. Well, then you don't need to trust anyone. You can go and look for yourself.
So, I mean, science defines what is truth.
It's just anti-establishment.
Yeah. He's just, I'm selfish. I want to live life on my terms, and I don't want to have to listen to anybody else who I disagree with. So I'm going to create this system where I'm going to tie these different things together, and I'm going to call it self-mastery, which I don't buy it.
Big Brother, which violates their privacy or their property. Third,
I want to see this guy get pulled over by the cops.
The very basis of capitalism itself.
I was just traveling.
Every good and every service
I don't need a license.
that has ever existed and succeeded on the market,
individual,
or will ever exist for that matter, is generated by this process. This process is the process of creation itself.
See, these people are scary,
both in experience and in their results, are the foundation of everything we hold dear as sovereign individuals.
These people have always existed.
And as freedom maximalists.
Just usually they were.
The story of sovereign individuality could be described as the pursuit of flow.
The corporate system.
The sovereign individual is
freedom maximalists.
A curious, passionate, purpose-driven, autonomous individual mastering himself through acts of creation.
You know what's noticeably missing from this? Ethics, integrity, empathy.
The common good.
Yeah. I mean, Hitler had purpose and autonomy and curiosity and passion and self-mastery. Of course, this guy would probably say Hitler got a bad rap.
And in this way, flow and Bitcoin are a match made in heaven. If flow produces self-mastery, which is the perfect means for creating value in the world, Bitcoin is what secures our property, which is the perfect means for preserving value.
Bitcoin does not preserve any property. The only reason why people have private property rights is because the government. Repeat it after me. You don't own anything unless there's an entity.
We don't need it now. We don't need it now.
I have a car. The reason why I own a car is because the government issued me a title. Because the government, if somebody steals that car, we'll get that car and bring it back to me.
You can just put it on the blockchain. If you just put it on the blockchain, then nobody can say that car isn't yours.
Right.
It's better than that.
So if somebody steals the car will no longer work because of blockchain. I don't get it.
Well, no, we'll be able to prove the car's yours.
Well, nobody would steal the car, right? Because they would go, oh, fuck, it's on blockchain. Can't steal it.
So we must ask ourselves, if flow is such a profound state for individuals, why is it an exception rather than the rule? It is noteworthy that children have no problem entering flow. They do it naturally when they're allowed to play freely. It is only as we condition children through education,
which is
that they lose that talent. The state institutions we entrust to nurture our children's
curiosities this guy's homeschooling?
And passions seemingly do the opposite.
Private school,
This
probably.
is, of course, by design. This is the argument made by John Taylor Gatto, an American educator, in his books, Weapons of Mass Instruction, and Dumbing Us Down, the hidden curriculum of compulsory schooling.
So there's problems in the education system, therefore it needs to be completely destroyed and eviscerated, and Bitcoin is a solution.
Yeah.
No.
There's
problems. There's problems. There are problems in the education system.
This is not a grim story about the Western
This is all just fear-mongering, too. Yeah. It looks like it ended, so it's no longer live.
They're still alive. Check the channel. Maybe check the channel and click on the live stream.
Okay. Protocol itself. It was
check
never
the actual
possible
channel,
to own an ownership slice of TCP/IP.
This is live now.
Go to Bitcoin Magazine.
With Bitcoin, it's
we'll go to
possible
Bitcoin
to own
Magazine.
an ownership.
It'll take me right back to this.
And then go back. Okay, so it's the same one. So they switched the feed for some reason.
They must have stopped and started, and it changed the URL.
What about that tension on open
Well, that was
source
weird.
stage? Any way to tee up the afternoon agenda over at open source about some of this stuff?
Well, like I said, we have the memorable announcement that is going to happen in about 15 minutes, which should be a pretty great way to start the afternoon. Then we have a bunch of great presentations from different open source projects. And then we're going to end it with a live show of my podcast.
If I was there on
that
panel, I would have one more
my
button
co-host
down.
Marty, who was just
I wouldn't go for 3 buttons
on the
down.
news
I
desk
would go
before
for 4.
us. But I just wanted to add
hair.
one other thing to what Jesse was saying, which is, it is absolutely integral that Bitcoin was, launched before all of these other protocols.
So what's this 1031? They've got a hat that says 1031 on it. You know what that is?
The thing I want to really hone in on the scarcity of Bitcoin.
So the guy's got a hat that says 1031 on it, right? And I know there's police code, so I looked up what the police code for 1031 is. Do you want to take a guess of what the police code for 1031 is?
Is it a riot?
No, it's crime in progress.
No, that's not true. Really?
I kid you not.
You've got it.
No, watch. Let's pull it up here. So yeah, these guys. There two people had.
Oh my God! There's 1031 Bank. That's the bank I want to do my banking with. That's amazing.
1031 police.
Yeah, 1031. I'm checking out the website. Investing in the leading Bitcoin native companies, building the world's future infrastructure.
There it is. There it is. 1031 is a crime in progress.
That's amazing.
But these people are hilarious. Oh, I love it. I love it. You just can't make this stuff up. You just can't.
So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of deception. There's a lot of misinformation, even to Bitcoiners, about how the system actually works. And of course, they have to do that because if you really understood how the system worked, then you start asking questions and you start asking the wrong questions.
Well, you notice they never get specific. That's one of my pet peeves, is that Bitcoin is freedom and Bitcoin is going to save us from the fiat cartel. If you ask how specifically, they can't answer that because that would require them to get into details that you can fact check and find out is not likely. So
yeah,
that I really do want to do like a video where I just pull out all these little cliches, these jingles that they keep repeating, these talking points, and point out that they never get specific for a very good reason by design. It's just like if you go to a sermon in a church, the pastor is not going to go, Gloria, I know you need a new car. Well, guess what? Tomorrow in your driveway, Jesus is going to give you a brand new Tesla. Because if you get specific and then the Tesla doesn't show up, she's like, that guy was full of shit. So if they just say, Jesus will give you what, if you work hard enough, if you stay the course and show him you're loyal, he will take care of you. That ambiguity you can't test. You can't say, oh, well, that didn't work. Maybe I just wasn't loyal enough. That's basically Bitcoin is it's money without masters. It's the world's hardest money. What does that mean? How does that translate into something that I can qualify in my day-to-day life? You can't. So I guess there you have it. Okay, well, everybody, thanks for watching. Be sure to tune into the channel, YouTube/American Scream Video and ioradio.org. Till next time.
Thanks for watching.